It's time to set your fantasy football lineups for week 1 of the 2020 NFL season. And we're doing that with some help from SI fantasy analyst Michael Fabiano, who just published his world famous Stardom Cinema report. Fabs, let's break down the running backs. Your start of the week, that's Todd Gurley. Why do you like the Falcons running back so much this week?
Gurley is a guy who I feel like is going to see a lot of volume. I feel like this is going to be a high-scoring game. And he's also had really good success against the Seahawks. This is a familiar opponent, right? You look back at the numbers over his last 4 games against Seattle, over 18 fantasy points in each of those 4 games. He is locked and loaded as an RB2.
Who are some of the other running backs you like this week?
Yeah, I like Melvin Gordon, and I know there's some question marks about him with Phillip Lindsay, but it's a good matchup. The Titans allowed nearly 1 full point per touch to running backs last year, so I feel like this is going to end up being a good start for Melvin Gordon. Raheem Mostert's a good play against Arizona this week. You know, their defense, it did improve in the offseason, but they still gave up right around 27 fantasy points per game. Their running backs last year. James White is a tremendous flex starter this week against Miami. They gave up an average of right around 26 fantasy points per game, the running backs last year, and we know right now the Patriots' backfield is a bit banged up. And then Tariq Cohen. With David Montgomery injured, Cohen should see a lot of touches in this contest. You want to take a look historically what he's done against the Lions. Also, 13-plus fantasy points in 4 of his last 5 games against Detroit. So, with Montgomery out, Tariq Cohen, based on volume and based on the fact that he's done pretty well against the Lions in the past, he's a nice flex starter as well.
Let's go to the opposite end of the spectrum. Devin, Singletary, and Jordan Howard are making your sit list for week 1. What's not to like about the Miami and Buffalo backfield?
Have you heard all the hype in Buffalo about Zach Moss? So this, Bill, is going to be one of the examples that we'll use in terms of we listened to what beat reporters were saying, and suddenly Buffalo's backfield doesn't look like it's going to be Singletary as number 1 and Moss as number 2. This could be a split. So this is a little bit of an issue for me. Also, keep in mind that Singletary will lose goal line opportunities to Moss and Josh Allen. So that has me a little bit concerned. And when you're talking about Jordan Howard, it's another situation of, well, who is going to be the lead back? We really don't know. Howard likely to start. Matt Breida will also be in the mix as well. But while the Patriots did lose some important defensive components to the coronavirus opt-out, I mean, they were still one of the toughest defenses in the National Football League against running backs last year. So that has me a bit concerned about Jordan Howard. Wouldn't want him as anything more than a desperation flex starter if you have multiple flex positions on your team.
Now, we only got to a few of the names on your list this week. Literally, you're writing this article for 2 days. You're researching it nonstop. So check out the full list. Get that membership to SI Fantasy Plus by going to si.com/fantasy.